Now you can hear me. I do believe you can hear me. Let's try this and see if you can hear me because yes, we have Audio Hijack Pro running. The deal is we have severe weather going on in my market here, and I'm flying in here, and I will not be able to participate at least at the first part of the show, which is probably a good thing, but it's going to be a really good show tonight. We have some folks from the Storm Prediction Center on the line with us, and these are amazing people that do amazing work, and it's hard work. And we're going to have Bill Bunting and Evan Bentley on from the Storm Prediction Center in Norman tonight. And obviously, it's March. There's so much to talk about, and it's going to be a really good show. A lot of you have sent in your questions, and we will ask all of your questions as we go along here. And again, I will not be able to participate at least for the first part of the show. Hopefully, I'll be able to come in for the second half. But I've got Drew McCombs, who is doing severe weather on our network for me as I speak. I have to walk back in there in just a minute and resume coverage. And really, where we are, we don't have any major type problems, and we don't have any tornado warnings, but we are providing long form coverage. We've had some broad rotation. We've had some flooding. We've had some strong winds. We've had some hail. But generally speaking, the storms have been fairly well behaved here tonight. And let me just say, James Adelot, I will not be able to hear you in that I don't have my earpieces that I need for this whole thing to work. And I do apologize for that. But again, we're going to have, I think most of the gang will be here tonight to kind of run the show. And again, I hate that I will miss the first part of this. And we are watching some broad rotation here. In fact, I'm going to put it up on this display in front of me here that shows some pretty strong winds. It's not really a tornado signature, which is good, but we've got some stronger winds that are coming out of Walker County, Alabama into Jefferson County, Alabama. And for that reason, we thought we'd stay with our live coverage. So again, I've got to step into the room next door. And let's see, James Adelot, if you can hear me, or if you can see me or do something, turn your video on and raise your hand. Because I will need you, sir, to take over. Yes, I cannot hear you because I've got my earpiece in the other studio in A over there, but I'm going to let you take over, and you are going to be the professional announcer, host, whatever, and that you're good. And
Oh, Lord.
So, again, I wish I could hear you, but I've got to sign off and go in Studio A. So, James, I will be sure everybody's admitted in here, but the floor now belongs to you, and you will be opening the show. I'm going to start the recorders now. And again, you can start the show anytime you want to start.
There he is.
Hi, guys.
Evan.
Evan. Good to see you, Evan. Bill. Hello, Bill.
Hey, guys.
The pun master himself has checked in.
Oh,
I'll be generally behaved tonight is probably the best approach, but we'll see.
Puns are encouraged, Bill.
Are they? Okay. Speaking my language.
The worse, the better.
Evan, did you go to the College Road Show, and did it work for your career?
I did. I heard you all talking about it last week. I was going to bring it up here early on.
Good deal. I'm glad to see it. Nice to see you, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the way this is going to work is James is there it is. Y'all start when everyone is here. Audio. Okay. Yeah. He's got weather. All right.
Yeah,
That's
they
what-
just had a mesoscale discussion by Bill's.
Bill, did you
Bill-
just issue that MD?
I can't confirm or deny. Let me just play it safe. We're watching. We're watching.
Okay. I'm just reading what he wrote, James.
Yeah, you take it by the horns. What do we join TV and stuff at
8
in 30
o'clock.
minutes.
So I guess at
Yeah.
8 o'clock, I don't have the thing to do the Bill Curtis thing. You want to do it, James?
Shoot.
We're kind of a big deal. That's amazing. You guys got Bill Curtis on the show in the first place. I don't know
It
who
was
did.
fascinating. I did not know his connection with the Topeka tornado either at the time.
Bill, you know about that, don't you?
I remember this. Yeah, as you talk about it, I remember when he was on. There are parts of it I watched. It's vague, but I remember. What a great voice.
Yeah.
You
And that's
know?
back when they referred to calendar years as the year of our Lord something or other.
Yeah, it was before Evan was born for sure.
We'll fill him in. We'll fill him in.
So Jen will be coming. She
Oh,
had
good.
go ahead.
I was gonna say good. I didn't know if she was gonna be able
Yeah,
to
she'll
pop
be
in or
here.
not.
She's checking into a hotel right now. She's a nomad, Bill. She runs Tornado Talk.
Yeah, no,
You know that, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So she goes across the country and she's been doing Tennessee research. But then her car had a problem. So she was at a dealership for 3 hours and drove. I don't know where she's going to go in Georgia, somewhere in Georgia. But she will be here momentarily. And Rick and Troy and did you see? They're all here, aren't they, tonight? James, did you see anything?
I didn't see anybody else jumping out, so I think so.
Okay. There's the commissioner.
It's just forever commissioner, isn't it?
Commissioner Emeritus.
Yeah, you
Commissioner
are.
Emeritus.
Nice to see you, Kim.
Good to see you, John. Thank you for putting this together. And hey, guys, good to see you.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm going to go ahead and restart my computer real fast and then join back in because it's being very glitchy. So let me just do that now
Okay.
so we don't have any problems later.
No
Maybe
problem.
that'll work on all our stuff here.
I'm going to start here in 1 minute when I see 8. That's so James is occupied with an MD, Kim. So I'm going to start off. We won't have the music, but at least I'll try to start.
Part of Bill's sabotage effort to
Anything to distract, right?
Kim, I am defending the week of graduation in May. And then I'll probably have a little bit of finishing up to do in the summer semester, but not bad. I just wanted a little bit more flexibility in time. So
Yeah. So the defense is up in Stillwater, yes.
yes, yay.
Campus.
Philly. Yeah.
What day is it? I'm just gonna mark it. For no
No.
reason at all.
No, we're not going to mark it. I don't know yet. It'll be the week of. I was just texting with my committee chair during the newscast tonight. So I don't know
Okay.
yet. I just know it'll be the week of that. I think the second week of May, second or first week of May.
The week of the 4th or the 11th?
That I don't know.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
lot of stuff I don't know as I get older and realize I just don't know. I don't know.
It's 7 o'clock Central, so let's get this thing going. So, hello, folks. Welcome to WeatherBrains. Good evening, good evening, good evening. James Spann. I'm not James Spann. I'm not as good looking. So he is busy with a convective outlook that one of our guests probably issued here recently. He's got weather in Alabama. He will be back when he can. And tonight we're going to have some great discussion about convective outlooks. So we'll check in with our whole gang here first. I see Rick Smith from Norman, Oklahoma. Rick, what's going on in the weather your world? How you doing?
I'm reading James's
Yeah,
note
this
there.
is show 1050. Thank you. I'm new here. Thank you. This is WeatherBrains 1050. And Rick Smith, you're
You
on
gotta
the air.
get that in there. What was I saying? I don't think I started saying anything. It's warm. It was 80 something here today. I don't think we set any records today, but we came close and got some more weather, convective weather possible tomorrow. It's not looking too crazy right here locally, but it wasn't looking too crazy last Thursday either, and it kind of turned out crazy. So anyway, though it's springtime for sure.
All right. Well, good deal. What do you out? Yeah, I didn't look at it. What do you outlook for tomorrow? What's your big threat?
It's a slight risk, and I think in our area, our main area of concern will be down along the Red River, our south central, southeast Oklahoma counties, and maybe some of our north Texas counties. So we could have storms elsewhere, but there's a lot. It's complicated tomorrow. So I don't like talking about thunderstorm outlooks with Bill and Evan on here. So let's move on.
Okay, we'll move right on. Gotcha. 10-4. Fair enough. Well done. Well, just down the road from you is our commissioner, Kim. Good evening. What's going on with you?
I was just putting into chat that it was starting to feel a little bit like an SPC Outlook quiz, and the literal instructors are right here. Did you all read the convective outlook? Do you know your category for tomorrow? So yeah, I was feeling that too, Rick. I have not. I'm sorry. I was in SPC today. I got to have a nice chat with Patrick Marsh. Walked by your office, Bill. Waved hello. But I did not, in fact, read the convective outlooks today. So I'm just going to put that mea culpa out there right now. I am doing great, though, guys. Everything has been lovely here after having a little bit of rain. That was a great mood reset for a lot of us. We just kind of needed a day or two of clouds. And I went back through the Mesonet looking at the observations for Norman to see when was the last time it was even cloudy here. And over, I think, the previous 30-day period, there'd been maybe one other cloudy day. And the rest of it was just oppressive sunshine. And it's weird to say that as someone from northern Indiana, the Indiana-Michigan border, which also had a fun week last week. But I grew up having nothing but clouds in winter. And I loved originally when I moved here, oh my gosh, winters here are just incredible. But it can wear on you a little bit after a while. So we had a little bit of a reprieve, got some rain, much needed rain, small amounts, though they came out to be. We needed that, and had some then beautiful days where the girls got to get out. So things are trucking along here, though. With the severe weather that did happen Friday, spring has certainly sprung, and we're all dusting off our plans, dusting out our shelters, remembering how to do all of this.
Okay, well, good deal. Bill Bunting, we always do this every night. Look, the Nomad's here. Where in the world is the Nomad tonight?
Woo, I'm telling you, I just came right off the road, unloaded, and I am in Commerce, Georgia. For a quick stop. I've been in East Tennessee for a couple of weeks and did a lot of some history. I spent 3 days in Knoxville at the East Tennessee History Center. It was awesome there. So many books. I didn't even get through as much as I wanted to. Found some tornadoes that I need to dig a little deeper into. And I'm taking a personal week, and I'm on my way to go help a friend who's about to have surgery. So this is one thing that's a good thing about being a nomad. If I need to be somewhere and I can get there, I'm going to try to. So, but I started my day in the Toyota dealership because I couldn't see my speedometer. So we needed to get that remedied first. But now I'm here with you guys. I'm really excited about tonight's show. I think we're going to learn so much.
Yeah. So go ahead, James A. I know you want to tell about your speedometer picture today. Go ahead. The thing you sent us in the group thread. Do you want to say anything?
Oh, I missed it.
No, in Salisaw, Oklahoma, the airport car has an inoperative panel, and I was halfway into town with a 0 in my face and realized, I just can use the phone app, and so I set my phone up there on the dusty old dashboard to get my speedometer. It's an instant pass for a speeding ticket. No, really, look, it says 0. I'm speeding.
That is a bit strange. So, Jen, what did you tell me the other day, real quick, for our listeners? What book did you find in East Tennessee that is mind-blowing to Thomas Grzoulis?
There is a book out. It's called Tennessee Disasters. And this gentleman who worked for the Tennessee Emergency Management Group He, his last name is Coggins. I think it's Alan Coggins, if I'm recalling right. He was tasked with finding all the disasters in Tennessee, not just natural disasters, but it could have been boating accidents, it could have been any other type of disasters, and document them all. And what got my attention was a tornado from 1808. And I had to do some digging, and I actually found it at newspapers.com. And the way it was worded is that, and the earliest tornado that Tom has that caused fatalities in Tennessee is 1830. So I'm going to do a little bit of some digging, but it did cause some fatalities. But in Knoxville, it was raining fish. So it was one of those type of events. So
Oh
I'm
my
going to
God.
Oh, boom, boom,
Oh
boom.
boy.
There's the first strike.
It's
Oh,
also worth noting the Tennessee Disasters book has 2 complete chapters devoted to Tennessee football.
Yeah. You can send the emails to James Aeldot.
At WeatherBrains.com. So yeah, so I've got some digging to do there, Gordon.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah, we
Tell
got
me
our
not
first
wanna
show
talk to me.
title.
Maybe
We
like,
got
no,
our
I'm
first
done
show
with the book.
title.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Hey, guess who's on here? James Aeldot, who's going to defend his thesis. When are you going to defend your thesis?
In May.
It's
I just don't know a date. It's just in May sometime. Well, knowing the way it works out, I'm sure we'll be in a at least moderate risk that day.
Probably. Tell our listeners about your severe weather event Friday.
It was the carryover from Rick's Central and Western Oklahoma severe weather event from Thursday. And we had 2 cyclic supercells run parallel paths about 30 miles apart. The north one produced EF2 damage and a lot of EF0 and EF1 damage in multiple, again, cyclic tornadoes. The south one sadly killed 2 people in a manufactured home with EF3 damage just south of Tulsa. And that produced several smaller tornadoes too, EF0s and EF1s as well. So we were on the air for 6 hours from 4:20 until about 10:20. And my cohort, Laura Mock, is a meteorological champion. We're coming back from her morning show to join me doing wall-to-wall coverage for that long.
That's pretty cool. Make sure she gets a raise, James.
I'm doing my best.
Make some brownies or something. Do something there, man. Okay. Thanks, guys. I don't see Troy. And do we know, Bill, before I introduce you, is Evan okay? Does he need computer assistance?
That's a good question. He's savvier than I am. I know he was doing a reboot. Hopefully he'll join us here in a second or two.
All
If
right.
not,
Well, we'll start
go
with
check.
you here. We'll get going here. All right. So, folks, tonight it's all about the Storm Prediction Center. And we're honored to have a friend and colleague, Bill Bunting. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia, where a series of hurricanes and nor'easters at a very young age started a lifelong interest in meteorology. Bill attended Old Dominion University. What'd you get at Old Dominion, Bill? What'd you do there?
I went there for 3 years and then transferred to OU to finish
Okay.
up. Yep.
All right. Got your bachelor's at OU, meteorology and psychology. That's why he's so smart. I've been wondering all these years. Bill's been in the Weather Service since 1985, working primarily at local offices in Norman, Kansas City, Pleasant Hill, Fort Worth. He was the MIC there. And prior to becoming that, he was chief of forecasting operations at SPC in 2012. And currently the deputy director at SPC since 24. Couldn't be a better person as far as I'm concerned. His professional interests include severe storm forecasting, good role of judgment and decision making. He's also a landscape and nature photographer, man, and he plays the drums. Give a large welcome to my friend Bill Bunting, folks. All right.
Great to be here. Great to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad. And Evan, I'll introduce him when I see him. I still do not see a sighting. Rick Smith, if you do, let me know. So I'm being alert here. So, Bill, tell me about those hurricanes when you first were a young lad in the Eastern Shore.
Started with Camille. These will date me, I'll readily admit. So Hurricane Camille was the first event that I remember in my life that convinced me that my future was in meteorology. There were a couple others after that. Ginger in 71, Hurricane Agnes in 72. But then the event that really sort of cemented my interest in the National Weather Service was April 3rd and 4th, 1974. I was in 8th grade, snuck a radio into school, put a headphone inside my shirt, ran it up to my ear so I could quietly and surreptitiously listen to the news reports. And that was the day, that was the event that made me realize the National Weather Service was the career I had hoped to achieve. And it's been beyond a dream to have it work out like it has.
That's awesome. It really is. Yeah, Agnes is why I'm even in here today too, Bill. So I remember that.
Yeah.
What do you remember? April 3rd, 4th. Is there one big thing you remember that day?
I think it was the hour by hour as the news reports came in and the number of towns that were hit increased and the impacts. It just felt like everything in life was on hold while the weather played out. And I remember thinking, even as a kid, we are incredibly vulnerable to weather, whether it was watching an approaching hurricane or, a historic tornado outbreak. And that the importance of weather information, and back then, of course, it wasn't anything like what we can provide today, but there was this dependency on each piece of information, the forecast, the warnings, and then afterwards, the lessons learned, that I wanted to be a part of it. And so here we are.
That's cool, Bill. I love that. Who was your weather guy or gal on the East Virginia, Norfolk? My brother lives there. Who was your guy or gal?
Yeah, there was a guy named Joe Folks, I think Foulkes, former military. Then there was Colonel Smith, who was one of my instructors at Old Dominion, who was on the Wavy affiliate. And then Andy Roberts was CBS. And I would watch them all. And then when this thing called the Weather Channel came about, I was glued to that. And really before that, there was AM Weather. AM Weather was how I got to see the Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlooks each morning. And so I actually have a book of weather observations, and I have several Polaroid photographs of the Today Show's Skywarn weather map or AM Weather's winds aloft charts, just anything I could get my hands on. I embraced it. Of course, by today's comparisons, it's like this just seems so archaic, but it's what we had back then. And I loved it. I couldn't get enough.
Me too, Bill. So watch all the panelists there. If you watched AM Weather when you were young, raise your hand. Give me a thumbs up. There you go. You're not alone. Kim, that you weren't born yet. You weren't born yet, Kim. So
bit of an age dependency on that question, but still.
Yeah, we had a show. I don't know what episode it was. They came on. So AM Weather. Yeah. So for the folks out there, let's just kind of do a rundown. What's it like at the SPC? Tell us kind of the structure, the flow, the difference between days and evenings, whatever.
Sure. Well, I can first of all tell you, having spent 26 plus years in WFOs in severe weather alley, one of the main differences is that it's quieter during big days at SPC. We don't have public phone lines. We don't have amateur radio operators. And so it's quieter, and that allows us to focus on the meteorology. And it's a unique part of the job compared to my earlier experiences. We have, 25 forecasters. Some are dedicated for fire, but our severe weather forecasters, 22, are primarily staffing 13 shifts a day. So on a given, let's say, middle of the afternoon, there are 6 on duty. And we have a lead forecaster. We have a fire weather meteorologist who's essentially focusing on fire weather by themselves. We have an outlook forecaster who's looking at day 2 and day 3. And then we have 3 mesoscale assistants that are helping the lead monitor the current day weather. And so it's a small staff on duty. We give a lot of tours. And one of the common themes among the tourists that visit SPC that I hear when my desk was right next to them, they'd say, I thought this place would be bigger, more like Mission Control in Houston. And I always thought that was funny because I've been to Mission Control in Houston. And when I was first there, my first thought was, I thought this place would be bigger. So I think there's a tendency to think that some places are just larger than they are. But we're a very small staff and we're very focused on our job, and we get a lot of practice. So we can handle almost any severe weather event really with just 6 folks on duty. We'll bring in an extra person or 2 on the biggest of days, but by and large, we get really used to a fast operational tempo, and can handle it with the normal staffing.
Gotcha. So a lot of people are surprised you do a lot with fire weather. Do you want to talk about the fire weather work that you do there?
Yeah, glad to do that. We've been doing fire weather forecasts for about 25 years now. Time is really flying by. It's one of the more surprising things as I get older. It's like, really, it's been 25 years, but it has. And the program has steadily grown. And recently we received authority to bring in fire weather lead forecasters so that we could have a career progression here on site. And it's worked out very well. We also have a fire weather SOO, Science and Operations Officer, fire weather warning coordination meteorologist, and techniques development meteorologist to help advance the tools that meteorologists have, and also IMETs, the incident meteorologists that are out there. So we're really excited about this sort of at least once in my career, opportunity to really expand our services and grow the fire weather program. And there are many years where, frankly, the fire weather forecasts are as important as the severe weather forecast that we issue. So it's an important part of the SPC mission.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for talking about that. So Evan, let's welcome our other guest. So Evan Bentley is the brand new warning coordination meteorologist, WCM at the Storm Prediction Center. Grew up in Ohio and he attended Valpo, one of my favorite schools, Valparaiso University in Indiana. Evans worked at the Weather Service for 15 years, spending about half that time at SPC. And he loves, James is going to like this, historical weather statistics and visualization. How about that? Welcome, Evan. Your computer problems are over.
You are not glitching anymore. We're good to go now, John.
Okay, so I first met Evan at the College Road Show. When was it? You want to tell him about that?
Oh boy, this probably been 2009, 2010. Yeah, because I heard you talking about it on the show last week, and that's the very first time that we met. When I was a student at Valparaiso, so I started there, and that was kind of my first exposure to the Weather Service, and kind of realizing like that was the path that I wanted to take, kind of within operational meteorology. And then I was fortunate enough to get one of those SCEP positions, and then found myself working at the Northern Indiana office, to which then I had the opportunity, when we didn't have an MIC, that I was able to come over and be one of the presenters representing the Northern Indiana office. So y'all might not know, I had the opportunity to present alongside John Gordon, representing the Weather Service offices there in Indiana. And let me tell you, if you're trying to keep the energy level high, I thought I could do a decent job of it, but John, man, he puts you to shame, but that's not a surprise to any of y'all, right?
That's very kind of you. Thank you. So what was the big weather event? You grew up in Ohio. Bill was hurricanes, Camille, Ginger. What was your big weather event that got you in?
Well, so I'm one of those meteorologists that since I was 2 to 3 years old, always knew that I wanted to be in weather. Always stand in front of the TV. Even my mom in her journal, we found it a couple of years ago, and we were reading through it. This was in the summer of 1990. So I was 2 years old, and she said, this kid is always looking up at the clouds. So there was something almost innate in my DNA that I was always fascinated. But weather event-wise, the Xenia tornado, which you might say, wait, what? You said you were born in 88. The second Xenia tornado, because I always knew Xenia was hit during the super outbreak in 74, but then year 2000, Xenia was hit again. And my dad's side of the family lives down in Cincinnati. And so I remember driving through that tornado path and just realizing that how bad it was there, how much worse it had been, just, I guess it would have been 26 years earlier than that, that it was a much worse tornado then. And that damage was the worst tornado damage I'd ever seen. And so that was really kind of shocking to me in my developmental years.
Yeah, Xenia. Jen, that's not a good place for tornado history, is it?
Nope, not at all. Not at
all. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, Bill and Evan, is I got a lot of questions that WeatherBrains listeners have sent in, and along with the panelists, we're just going to go one by one by one. Does that work for you guys?
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we got, let's see, Jack Rudin is a student. He asked, how should a broadcast meteorologist explain a SIG-2 hatched enhanced risk, for example, in a way that the general public would understand? So I guess we could precede that. Evan, if you want to show the SIG stuff and do do you want to share your screen at all, or Bill, or do you want to just go into that question?
Yeah, so I can start just kind of giving a brief overview of that if you'd like, just here off the bat.
Let's do that.
So there's a lot of science behind this and behind what we did with our new conditional intensity forecast. But really, when we break it down in a more simplified manner, intensity level 1 or SIG 1, we're talking about a reasonable max intensity of tornadoes of EF2. We're looking for a reasonable max of EF3 when we get to that intensity level 2. And then when we get to the intensity level 3, that's historic outbreaks. These are the days when in the past we would have said violent in the outlook, those type of things. And so when we're trying to communicate that to the public, going back to the question, it can get complicated when you're trying to talk about the probability and the intensity. And really, we just, a lot of the things that we're curious about is kind of the ways that the broadcast media is able to curate this message. They've got a lot of experience doing it and are really good at doing those pieces. And some of it is just using the same things that have worked in the past, the same way to show the tornado risk, but perhaps on top, adding a little bit of additional information. It might even just be words that within this area is the greatest potential for intense tornadoes today. That's simplification on trying to simplify the message in what is a pretty complicated topic.
Okay, good deal. I think you answered that guy's question, Jax, there. Okay, so this comes from James Summers. He's got 2 parts. We'll do one at a time. What are your thoughts, plans on issuing high risk for wind events? Again, since I noticed there are now 75% and 90% risk for winds.
So I do want to start off the bat because I heard the word again in there. As if we couldn't do it before, we could. Now, part of that is it was very challenging, and it still remains very challenging because what we're aiming for with those are the extreme threat to life. That's the high-end derecho events. Those are the events that happened in August a couple of years ago in Iowa, on June 29th of 2012, when I was at the Northern Indiana office at the time. Those historic events, we obviously want to have those in a high-risk scenario. The problem is, in those scenarios, what is it? Maybe 1 or 2 cells that merge just right that actually kick the entire thing off. And being able to forecast that more than 4, 5, 6 hours in advance is incredibly challenging. So in an ideal world, yes, we would love to get high risks out in front of every one of these historic type derechos. In the predictability sense, it's not realistic to expect it all the time, but that will be our goal when we can, especially as the science improves, so we can get a little bit farther out than kind of the current lead time, which a lot of times is less than 6 hours before those events occur.
Okay, copy. He's got a 2 parts. So James, the student, how many high risks do you think there will be now with the SIG risks? Will it be back to a way it was in the 2000s when there would be multiple a year, or still keep it at 1 every couple of years on average?
I know Evan has a lot to say here, but I'll just say that we worked really hard to keep the categories largely unchanging during this transition because one thing we've heard from emergency managers is that they've become calibrated to the categorical terms. And so we really tried to make this additional information that's available, but not change the character of the categorical terms.
Copy. Evan, do you want to say anything else, or are you good?
No, Bill handled it great. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. Okay, now with this tangentially related, but I remember finding this random video on YouTube 6 years ago where it was mentioned that there are plans to start issuing a day 1 convective outlook as needed. Are there still plans to do that in between? Somebody else talked about that, Bill, where in between outlooks, can you do this, and what is the policy? 2 people asked that.
Yeah, we can amend the outlooks anytime. In practicality, we don't do it very often just because we have 5 updates a day. And we have mesoscale discussions where we can convey short-term thinking. But yeah, we can amend an outlook at any time. And down the road, I think, it's very possible we may go to more frequent updates. But right now we have the 5 a day, and that's, that gives us great flexibility. And that plus the MDs can allow us to keep ahead of almost any evolving threat.
Okay. Yeah, the other person, Katie in Kearney, Nebraska, said, do you think it is happening enough to update when there is convection in an area you have not drawn?
Of course, we're maintaining a constant weather watch. And, for general thunderstorms, we may wait until the next outlook, which is never more than a few hours away. If it's a severe risk, then one thing we often do in those situations is just issue the next scheduled outlook earlier. So that's a tool, and we did that in fact on the Corn Belt derecho, the Iowa derecho. We got the 13Z Outlook out. I want to recall close to 45 minutes early, just to get the word out as quickly as we could.
I remember that. It was almost an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but before I forget, last Friday there was a lot of storms across the nation. Anything you want to talk about last Friday, Bill? Just in general?
No, not except for to say that, all of the deaths that occurred in the 2-day event, very tragic, really tragic. And we learn from every event, and these will be no exceptions.
Yep. Okay. Emerson in Valdosta, Georgia. What factors determine issuing a PDS watch?
PDS watch is forecaster discretion. Almost everything we do here, although we have guidance, is forecaster discretion. So forecaster experience, understanding of the environment, short-term cam guidance, convective mode all play a role. But in the end, it's a lead forecaster decision informed by, and this is something we stress both daily, but also in who we hire. Internal collaboration is critical to SPC operations. It's not uncommon to have the better part of 100 years experience. This is not demeaning the age of any of our folks, but there's a lot of experience on shift here. And so we talk freely, we talk internally, and we make sure that when we make a decision, it's the best we can do with the staff that's on duty. But in the end, it's a subjective decision when to issue PDS.
Okay, just real quick, is somebody else wrote about that. Somebody wrote about Jack Hales, Larry Wilson, Steve Corfidi, Bob Johns. You've lost a lot of the old experience, haven't you? I mean, Roger just retired. Is John Hart the most experienced? Somebody asked that.
I believe so. Yeah, and John, who's on shift this evening, probably has it down low volume in the background. He's been here since the early 90s and has probably almost 25 years as a lead. So, he's our senior tenured lead and senior forecaster here at SPC, and that's a lot of experience, a lot of events. Every day he comes to work, he brings that with him.
Yeah, he sat behind me in physical meteorology, and now he's a lead at SPC. Amazing. Yeah. Oh, Kim, you're up.
Well, you guys opened the door to talk about the new convective outlook probabilities, and I thought that our audience might like a little bit more of an unpack of just a little bit more description of what is it, what has changed, and what can people expect to see? How might outlooks look different than what they've experienced? So you talked about the categorical system remaining similar and some of the probabilistic underpinning of that remaining similar, but you've sort of disaggregated the two key attributes that make up this scale. So there's the coverage piece, how many tornadoes, and there's the potential intensity. Evan, you said something about it's the most reasonable expected intensity. So unpack what that means in probability language. Like what is it that you're really forecasting for?
Yeah, so that was the challenging piece here, is that we wanted to keep the categories the same. We'd heard that for a long time from the social science community about de-emphasizing the wording related to that, go into the 1 to 5 tiers and kind of focusing more on the colors and on the numbers. And we really took that to heart and didn't want to make another change within the categorical outlook. The other thing is the emergency management community and all has gotten used to what our categories mean from an impact-based perspective. So we kept that part the same, but as you mentioned, it's the underlying pieces of it that are really adding all the value here. So underneath it now, we can actually say what's the probability of a storm separately from what is the intensity of that storm. So what does that mean? Let's take a couple examples. Let's say on a day, we've got a tropical system and we might have a ton of tornado warnings. We might have a ton of tornadoes, but generally, now Milton was an exception, but generally within tropical systems, they're weak tornadoes. They're almost entirely EF0 and EF1 tornadoes if you look at the database. So in that scenario, in the past, we would have not necessarily gone up to the higher tornado probabilities because then we're getting up into moderate risk and higher. And is that really the message that we want to send for the day? Now we have the ability to put the exact probabilities that we think the coverage is going to be, because that's valuable information for an emergency manager or for a local weather service office. How busy are we going to be? How many warnings are we going to be issuing? How many storms are going to be ongoing at once? That's an important piece. But then there's the other side of how intense will they be? If they're all relatively weak, then we're capping that in the enhanced risk timeframe, that level 3 out of 5. That's kind of, what we want the message of the day to be from what the true threat to people's lives are. On the other hand, you could have a day when we don't expect any storms at all. If there's a storm, there's one or two that maybe form along the dry line. But if they occur, it could be bad. We're talking intense tornadoes, softball-sized hail. In the past, we didn't really have a way to convey that. And this is an important point here. Some people have asked, what do you mean you're keeping the categories the same? Because a SIG area matched with a probability doesn't match the same way that it did before. So how are you going to keep it the same? Here would be an example of that. Let's say a day with supercells that develop on the dry line. At the very southern end of that might be the best environment, but you've got a cap. If that cap breaks, we're talking softball-sized hail is possible, but you don't know if it's going to occur. In the past, we don't really want softball-sized hail falling outside of a slight risk, so we might have bumped that slight risk down there with 15% probabilities, knowing the probability of a storm might have actually been less than 15, but that gives us the opportunity to put the intensity level in there, right? Now we don't have to do that. We can put a 5% probability with even an intensity level 2 and get to a slight risk. So that's how the category stays the same as the old system, because we've mapped it that way intentionally. We wanted to make sure that everything aligned the same way it did in the past. But now think of all the additional information under the hood there. Now you're saying, hey, most people aren't going to see a storm, but those of you who do, look out. This is not a day to ignore any type of warnings whatsoever, because this is one of the more extreme events. And that's the valuable information underneath the hood that really underpins this entire system.
Evan, do you mind sharing your screen? Multiple people want you to show some of these SIGs. Just kind of do a short show where you can show it, not just talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can definitely do that. So let me go ahead. I've already got it prepared here. So let me switch on over. So none of this is going to be that new to anyone who's seen some of the training that we've done in the YouTube videos, et cetera. But let me, these are all the similar slides, but let me show a little bit about what we're doing here. So let's start right here. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen all right? All right. So this is the idea of what we're aiming for with our reference distribution. So if we're saying when we've got here, let me actually go back 2 more slides here. Here we go. So on this one here, this is what we're aiming for with these intensity groups. And so we took historical tornado data. So we said, all right, if we're looking at the last 20 years of tornado environments, what type of tornadoes occur in each of these environments? So for example, when the STP is less than 1, 93% of all tornadoes are weak. On the other end, all the way up here at the high side, the 7+ STP environment, 40% of all tornadoes are strong within that environment. And you're all the way up to 5%, or basically 1 in 20 tornadoes end up being violent within this environment. So it really shows that there's a big difference in tornado intensity based on the environment. And STP just so happens to be a good way to discriminate between these groups. So that gives a general idea. Let's just start with tornado there for what we're trying to do. Let me go down here to a couple of examples to show. So let's just go through a couple of examples from last year that really kind of demonstrate this pretty well. So starting here, this was the biggest tornado outbreak of last year. So this is on March 14th. And on this day there on the left, that's what our operational outlook looked like. It looked pretty good. I mean, we highlighted the moderate risk had a lot of the most intense tornadoes within it. Most of the tornadoes are within the area we wanted, but a couple things you'll notice with our conditional intensity outlook on the right, we actually have that hatching extending outside the 10%. That's one of the big values in this. We no longer have a probabilistic coverage where we have to hit the 10% coverage within 25 miles of a point. We are now disconnecting that. So now we can go less than that. We can go to 5%, down to 2%. And on this day, there are 3 EF2 tornadoes that occurred outside of the 10% area. So in our operational outlook, they were not in any type of intensity area. But in our conditional intensity outlook that we were doing experimentally in real time, we had 3 of those tornadoes now captured with the intensity information. Also, in our old system, it was just any EF2+. Well, you'll see on this day, we had an intensity level 2 area, quite a large one. And all of the EF3 and EF4 plus tornadoes occurred within that area. So this is the type of additional information under the hood that can really be valuable when messaging it. The same type of thing on the April 2nd, 2025 event. This was a high-risk day. That also was a pretty decent forecast for where the most intense tornadoes were. But we have that additional information here as well. All of the EF3 tornadoes were within the intensity level 2 area, except for one. You'll notice it there snuck just outside, just south of St. Louis. But even that, you'll actually see it's fairly close to the intensity level 2. One important thing to note with that, because this is an important piece, it's not a binary outlook. Being close to the next category actually matters. Underneath the hood, for a lot of the really great stuff that we're developing, we have continuous probabilities within these. So that area is not a SIG 1. It is probably a SIG 1.6 or 1.7 when you're looking at it mathematically underneath the hood from a continuous level. And so that's one thing to note. Being close to the higher area does matter. You do have a greater likelihood of a more intense tornado the closer you get to that center contour within the broader intensity level 1 area. So that's an interesting thing to note there in that case. And then this one, I'll just show these three kind of as a broad overview, but this is the one that really is adding value for us. That we didn't have this ability in the past to have that intensity information with a 5% outlook. On the left, that's the best we could do under the old system. Even if we thought there was a chance for stronger tornadoes, and we did in the conditional intensity, we had a 5% with a hatched area, and we called it in the past, or the SIG 1 now. And that was the Gary, South Dakota day. So there was an EF2 and an EF3 that occurred on this day that under the old system would not have had any intensity information added to it. So that's just a kind of a brief overview of some examples of the way this works and kind of what we're trying to aim for. I know it's definitely some tornado focus, but we can get into some of the other hazards as well as we move forward.
Okay. Kim, did you want to follow up?
No, that was a great overview. I think I know you guys did such a great job promoting this change, and you had a lot of webinars that you delivered so that if people wanted to go in depth on the change, they could. We have just a great mix of folks who listen to our show who are a mix of core partners who would have seen those notices, and then our more weather geeks in the public who just love to know what we're looking at and what we're looking for. And I think it's a really interesting shift, right? We have, especially now in our modern era of improved numerical model guidance, we're just getting to a point where we can estimate the distributions of likely outcomes so well that there's this powerhouse of information we can give to people. And I really appreciate that you're able to take a look under the hood here and help our audience understand a little bit of what you're looking at. So that's it for that one for now. Thank you, John.
And if I could just give a shameless thank you, Evan and Rich Thompson really led our public outreach prior to the introduction of the conditional intensity, and they did a great job. Evan, I forget the total number of people you reached, but it was over 1,000, and so it was really great that they were able to do that. And I really think it helped streamline the implementation.
Yeah, James Spann made that his pick of the week, Evan, your videos. So, I mean, he picked you.
And let me just throw in too. Let me just throw in too, there was a lot of public and partner outreach, but there was a lot of outreach and education to the WFOs. I mean, all the weather service offices, Evan and Rich provided some specialized training for our office. I think it was last week. And we're willing to do that for any office. Sent emails to the WCMs. They offered training materials that we could stick in a storm spotter training presentation. They just been really, really, really on top of this and really appreciated from the internal side of things.
Awesome. Wouldn't expect anything less from Brother Bill. So our next question, Jen's going to read.
I am, and I'm a little incognito right now because my internet's acting wacky. So I'm just going to hear the dulcet radio tones here. But we got an email that came in from Liam, and he is a weather weenie. And so he had a question, kind of set the scenario here. He's from Ohio, Evan. My home base is Ohio as well. And he brought up the scenario from 2024, where we had the Indian Lake tornado, and then a few weeks later we had another possibility of tornadoes happening. That was April 2nd, 2024, and there was a moderate risk in central Ohio. And of course, at that point, everyone's on edge and wanting to know what's going to happen. And so, they had y'all had moderate risk out, and then the next day things kind of changed and fell apart a little bit. So his question was, how do we responsibly communicate impactful weather events to our family, friends, and coworkers. When you see a moderate risk, and we all have this, whether it is to our family and friends or as broadcasters, or it doesn't matter. We see the moderate risk and we want to make sure we tell people what's happening, and then things kind of fall apart a little bit, or dynamics are different, and things change. It's weather, but how do we communicate that to folks, and try to explain it to them, where they don't say, oh, it must be nice to get paid, you're wrong all the time. We hear that all the time. But how do we say, no, things have changed and this is how? What do you guys suggest, and anybody else who wants to kind of weigh in on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll just say I was in Ohio April 2nd and 3rd for the anniversary of the 74 super outbreak. So I experienced that firsthand. Yeah, that was a day where there were some model solutions that were really quite impressive. As it turned out, the prior storms led to a refocus a little farther south, I think, than much of the moderate risk. And one of the things that I tell my friends, and I've got folks on our block that like to text and ask what the forecast is. First of all, you never really know how close you were to a different outcome. And so severe weather forecasting is inherently probabilistic. I think those types of events where things don't play out perhaps like we thought are infrequent, and that's speaks to the skill that we have. And when the conditions are such that, in our judgment, it's our best forecast to get the word out and to use those higher categories. The threat was real and it was there. I'm thankful it didn't play out as we feared that day, because there was the potential for higher end outcomes. But it's a probabilistic endeavor that we're in here, and so we're fortunate that it didn't play out like we thought. But you really have to take each event separately and react to the potential. And a near miss is not the same as a false alarm. And on that day, bad storms did occur, very severe storms. They just happened to be a little farther south.
No.
Evan, I'm not sure if you want to add anything.
Well, I'll just
Here,
note
you're
one thing on that. With having family in that part of the country, I did have that communication piece with them, especially after those tornadoes that had occurred earlier. One went right through the north side of Columbus, and actually went in between my wife's cousins all live up in that part of Columbus, and it went right between two of their homes. And so they were driving past the damage path every day. So it was very real for them. So, when the communication piece was coming for the next event, honestly, a lot of times when people have been impacted that closely by the tornado threat, they just want to know when there's any threat whatsoever. And that they appreciate letting them know. And then when the forecast changes, letting them know that, hey, we think you're in the clear now at this point. More communication generally seems to help anxiety in those situations. It seems like, at least on a personal level, in those interactions with family and friends. And so, those are valuable pieces that we learn within our own community, within our own relationships, that we help build into our forecast process, as well as we think about the people that are involved with these forecasts that we make.
That's awesome. I want to follow up just real quick, because Liam puts in here, he goes, but as I feel as if my opinion had some weight on some of the decisions that were made, the place that he worked closed early and what have you. He said, I feel some guilt that I was part of the quote unquote cry wolf dilemma. And Liam, you weren't crying wolf. You actually were doing the opposite. You were helping your friends and family. You took the tools that you have and you did the best that you could. And then you communicated the risk. And then the next day you communicated how things had changed. So I think you did an amazing job. And, that's all we can do. We can tell what we know and talk about how things have changed. And again, I thank you both for talking about that. He was also curious about how events like April 2nd, 2024 would look with the new SPC outlook changes. Is there a way to kind of maybe briefly talk about that?
So I don't have that specific event up right now to speak on, but those are the things that we've been working on behind the scenes and that we finally got ready for it. I mean, there were some times early on, let's say in the first couple of years of it, when ourselves, we were trying to figure out what exactly we're trying to do as a part of it. What are we aiming for? and getting comfortable with the idea that we can now draw outside of 10% areas. The first year that we were doing it, it was hard to get outside the 10% line because we'd been doing it that way. Some of the forecasters here had been doing it that way for 25 years. And so breaking that habit was a tough thing off the bat. So really it was 2025 and probably the second half of 2024 when I think we all locked in and we're doing things very consistently in the experimental mode. By that point, that's when we were confident to go live with it forward. So the stuff before that, I actually don't know at all what that day looked like. It might have been a really good forecast, or it may not have. I'm not even speaking specifically to how that event worked. That's just part of the iterative process that we had. And we were doing it experimentally at that time. And those were some of the events that helped form our ideas of whether or not we were ready to move forward with it. And over 2025, we realized we are.
I don't know that we mentioned it, but we had over 4 years of internal work developing the approach that we debuted just a couple of weeks ago. So a lot of events, a lot of discussion, a lot of verification really went into the decision to unveil the conditional intensity like we did.
That point you just made, Bill, about this having gone through the testing is perfect lead into my answer to the question that the audience member posed, and then a lead into another question for you guys. This wasn't the only system you guys had considered. You also, what you're talking about is the probabilistic reference class. How are we going to describe the nature of the uncertainties here? There are a lot of different possible ways to do it, both in terms of just what are we getting the probability of, and then how is it formatted? And one of the things I know that you guys had done some research, collaborative research with social scientists. You'd done research looking at something like, how does this day compare to climatology? So a climatology adjusted probability value. So instead of showing like a 2%, area, for example, for the event that just happened this past weekend, up in the upper Midwest, 2% probability this time of year, especially, this is like 20 times higher chance of seeing severe weather than an ordinary spring day. It's a different way of understanding and contextualizing the event. And I think the audience member had asked us, what do you do for your family to communicate some of this information? And that's one of the things I try to highlight, even if I don't have the numbers on hand to say it's 20 times more likely specifically. I know that my friends on the East Coast, for example, and we had people come into the hazardous weather test bed who are emergency managers on the East Coast. A slight risk might be the highest category they ever see. And so they want to emphasize, this is our worst case. This is our big day. And I highlight that for friends, like, this is one of the higher end days you're going to see, that kind of thing. Give the historical context so that they can understand the rarity. But the other piece I give is the reference class, the spatial piece. So I'll say that means there'll be a tornado somewhere within a county of you, is like, I take that probability value and I adjust it to what is the spatial domain here. Within 25 miles of a point is about a county width. And I try to say, I mean, I guess that depends on where you are in the US. Some counties much smaller, some much bigger, but you can adjust it. And I try to give that, it's not going to be your backyard, but it'll be somewhere in your vicinity. And here's what we mean by vicinity, because those pieces of information, I think, help people to decode, okay, how rare and how likely for me personally. And that, I think that helps them to just like know what to do and how to trust, because they're not, the odds are they're not going to get hurt personally by a tornado. That's never the most likely outcome, no matter what day we're talking about, that every individual listening is going to be hit by a tornado. But when it hits your community, you're affected. And I want people to know that that's the referent. Sorry, Bill, you had something I think you wanted to say.
No, that was great. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain that. And I agree completely. I just wanted to throw in a quick plug for our hazard climatology page. Recently updated, that David Harrison led the work to develop, because that background climatology gives you context to interpret our outlooks. And yes, a 2% in some parts of the country this time of the year is well above climatology. And so it's an important piece of information. Absolutely.
Okay, so in case you're wondering, James Spann is busy with weather. James Adeldow, what's the latest weather update in Alabama? Do you want to just tell us? You've been sending little notes. Just I'm not paying attention. So what is happening in Alabama, James A?
It's just a QLCS. It's everyone's favorite weather event. So it's got some transient circulations. There's one about 20 miles southwest of Birmingham. Looks like the strongest circulation. No tornado warning issued yet for it right now, but that's approaching I-20, I-59. So that's getting into a pretty heavily populated area, but no tornado warning, but a fairly consistent circulation on it right now.
Okay. Bill, just ask this. QLCS, is there a kind of philosophy from SPC on dealing with everyone's favorite QLCS? Or, I mean, it's totally different than the supercell or convective clusters, whatever. What is the book answer? What is the philosophy?
Well, we try to capture the environments as they present themselves. QLCS are usually not just tornadoes. There's typically a wind threat, and so the challenge is trying to distinguish the situation that is predominantly straight line convective wind from one where there may be embedded circulations, and especially the environments that have the potential for stronger circulations. And so, we look at the parameter space, we look at convective mode, try to do our best job. It can be challenging. These are sometimes fickle environments. And then we try to update with the MDs, mesoscale discussions, and Outlook updates to try to stay ahead of all the threats that might develop. But yeah, QLCS circulations can be challenging, and if we can identify the environments that have that rare potential for higher end tornadoes, most of them tend to be on the lower end of the spectrum, then we're going to do that. We're going to do that as often and as aggressively as we need to.
Yeah, thank you. Great, thank you. Okay, this comes from John in Arizona. How difficult is it overall during the Southwest monsoon season to issue a severe thunderstorm watch box?
Well, we certainly, when we can anticipate the likelihood of storms aggregating and sending a cold pool into the lower elevations off the Mogollon Rim, we do it. Sometimes predictability can be a challenge. Other times, we can sort of see that potential just based on the number of storms, the mean flow in the cloud-bearing layer, and of course that has higher predictability. But having worked a number of those events, I can say it's a challenge separating the events where it's more of a localized threat versus one where you're going to get a really well-developed cold pool move down into the population areas. So it's one of the many reasons I've lost so much hair over the years, is pulling it out over these challenging forecasts. But we do have skill, and we do every year there are some events where we can really anticipate them and get the watches out.
Well, yeah. So I'm going to follow it up. Mallory from Phoenix. It seems like the watch box philosophy for the desert Southwest is dependent on who the lead forecaster is during the shift. Is there a standard philosophy in how to handle desert Southwest monsoon, or is at the discretion of the lead?
Well, all forecasts, all watches are determined by the lead. So there is some subjectivity to it. But our leads are very experienced. And so we know the situations to look for that would lead to considering a watch. And then, of course, watches are not issued 100% by SPC. It's a collaborative process. And we talk with the affected WFOs and we reach a consensus decision. And so all of those factors play into whether or not a watch is issued.
Evan, Bill, it's good to see you again after it's been 8 hours or something like that. So I just had a question for the listeners and viewers. Could you I think some people are under the misconception that SPC pushes a button, a watch goes out, but they don't know all the work that goes into it before that. I'm talking about the collaboration specifically with WFOs. Can you kind of take us through the step-by-step of how that works when from the time the lead, comes to the point where they think they might need a watch to when it gets issued? Kind of talk us through that.
Yeah. I don't want to hog the mic. So Evan, feel free and I can jump in.
So I actually have a great example for this one that we can discuss because Bill, you and I work this event together. I'm terrible with dates, but it was a May Day 2 years ago. Was it May 2014? Bill was on the lead desk, and I was over on the Outlook desk, and I'm looking at the 20Z Outlook, and I'm like, we've got problems with this Outlook. We had precip across the area the entire morning, and all of a sudden we were heating up behind the precip. It was one of these, you have morning convection, and then you start heating up north of the boundary, and it's a problem. And it was becoming a problem very quickly. But this just shows how it's kind of a multi-layered piece. And so as I'm sitting there staring at this going, man, some of these areas I'm going to have to like triple upgrade tornado probabilities. This is a big change, kind of mulling over. Am I seeing this right? Because that's a big change for us to make. It really is. As I'm doing that, the meso forecaster walks over to Bill at the lead desk and goes, so I'm putting this watch together, or this MD together for this area. Are you considering PDS with your watch? Well, at the time we had an enhanced risk. And the moment I hear that, I'm like, okay, well, obviously they're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. Then that leads to a conversation on shift between the three of us. So as the outlooker, the lead, and the meso, we're all talking now about what we're seeing with the threat. So this is the internal collaboration piece where we're all talking, we're all on the same page before the watch goes out, before the MD goes out, before the new outlook goes out. We're all getting on the same page. And then at that point, because it is such a big change, I give a call to the local forecast office. I think it might have been Springfield and St. Louis that I had to call, maybe even Paducah. And I called those offices and pretty quickly said, this is going to be a huge change. Some of your areas are going to see multi-category shifts. And it was immediately, they were like, yep, no, we need it. Let's go. It was like a 30-second conversation. So it went all the way down there to the local forecast level before the outlook was out. And then, of course, going into the watch process, that's an important part of that step is when the lead presses the button for a watch, the first button they press is to initiate a conference call. And so that conference call brings all the local forecast offices on board. And there, the discussion is had on exact areas that need covered, what type of watch it's going to be, whether or not it's severe versus tornado. And some of those things, the lead has a pretty good idea of beforehand. Sometimes the lead is saying, it feels strongly this needs to be a tornado watch, feel strongly we need these areas in. But these might be the areas that I'm a little less certain. On the eastern extent, do you want your metro area in now? Or would you rather have us keep it west of there and we can add it in later? Those are the really valuable pieces and kind of some of the fringe areas where there's a lot more. Honestly, that a lot of times we all agree on the central meteorology, right? It's more the fringe areas of how we want to message it as we move forward. And that's a lot of the important part of what those conference calls entail. And then after that, so it's now been communication internally, externally. That's when the button goes out, gets pressed, and it goes out to the world. So really, it is a multifaceted process that starts multi-hours in advance. So people see the watch go out, and that process generally started 30 to 45 minutes ahead of that before it actually leaves the walls here.
Yeah, and to build on what Evan said, once the watch goes out, the WFO can expand the watch. There are limits, but if a WFO's part of their area was in the watch initially, they can expand it. And so that gives us some additional strategy when a watch decision is made. Perhaps you want to leave the metro area out because you're uncertain just how far east the threat will exist. And so you can do that and then just have an agreement that the watch can be expanded by the WFO as storms develop and as it becomes clear that, maybe they will threaten the areas. So it gives us some additional flexibility, and all of those attributes are really important as we get into severe weather season. Because obviously we want to minimize the time that folks spend in a watch, but we want to make it relevant to their personal decisions to take action, to get the information, and then to make the decision to seek shelter when the warnings are issued.
We did that exact thing, Bill, with John Hart last Thursday, talking about the tornado watch, and we wanted to keep it as small as possible, but we end up adding 4, 5, 6 counties as the storms kept getting further north and northeast than we were initially expecting. So we do have that flexibility to tack on counties, and so yeah, I think that's an interesting mechanics that go on behind the scenes. I just want everybody here to, this is the wonderful tone that we hear on our computer system when SPC wants to have a conference call. And usually there's some comments that are made at that point, good or bad. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's interesting to just know the discussion that goes on. And sometimes you've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 offices on there that you've got to go through and kind of compromise and come to a decision there. So thanks for sharing that.
I think my personal record is 7 WFOs on a coordination call. And I will say that one of the things that works to our advantage collectively is that, the outlook and the mesoscale discussions have sort of set the table, but the clock is ticking. By the time we get to the watch coordination call, initiation may be imminent or even underway. And so it does help focus the discussion. And out of the 100+ watches I've issued, I really can't think of one where there was huge disagreement that had to be resolved. We can almost always figure out a course of action and get that watch out quickly.
That noise that Rick just did brought me back from retirement brain freeze. I've only heard that noise 1,000 times. So, so I'll just give a kudo to SPC. So as far as customer service and responsiveness to collaboration, Rick Smith's right. It's been fabulous. And Bill listened to me, the ravings of a madman, and worked on days 4 through 8. And I think you have done a fabulous job in the cool season on 4 through 8. Just a fabulous change.
Yeah, it's another example of the partnership.
Oh, that's very good. Okay. Gene in Denver. With your new SIGs, what will SPC do if you're expecting baseball to softball size hail in Denver or maybe even Chicago? Should this have a higher SIG than tornadoes in the middle of nowhere, Kansas?
No, that we are not taking population into account whatsoever. This is a true assessment of storm intensity. Even to the point where we've had some conversations internally about how do we want to verify this type of stuff? Do we actually want to verify it based on, for longer term averages? What if we looked at the peak VROT from every tornado versus having the EF rating, which obviously there are challenges associated with that. And so we are to that level of really focusing on the intensity of the storm and providing the same service to everyone all the way across the United States.
Yep. Can't emphasize that enough.
Yep. Okay. Brian in Tampa Bay. When it comes to the NWS warrant, Bill, you're going to love this one. Get ready. Hold on. When it comes to the NWS warning program, do you foresee opportunities in the future where warnings expand beyond the local office approach, such as a national team approach for warning experts who focus only on warnings and allowing WFOs to focus on DSS and interpretive messaging?
I've been around long enough. I wouldn't rule anything out. I will say that there is a lot of expertise at local levels. There is a great training program in the National Weather Service. And so, the warnings that are issued locally are very high quality and have no reason to necessarily say things will change. Having said that, I have seen changes in the organizational structure of the agency just in my 40 years, going on 41 now. And so, I wouldn't rule anything out. It will just depend on a number of factors as we go forward.
Okay. James A., you want to give us a radar update? What's going on with our Alabama storms?
Still a sustained and fairly strong QLCS circulation close to Bessemer. And that's, 15 miles southwest of downtown Birmingham. So it's an unpopulated place with a lot of tree canopy there too. So
moving east northeast, I'm assuming.
Kind of to the east or east southeast, actually. So
okay, all right, there you go. He's been putting notes in the chat. I figured everyone can enjoy this as much. Hopefully this will calm down before it hits Birmingham. All right, Bailey at Penn State. Bill, what software do you use to issue outlooks? Is it true you're going to make the extended outlook go out to 10 days?
We actually use software on site. We use the National Center version of AWIPS, and we have it's called PG Palette, and Nmap is the display system that we use within AWIPS or in AWIPS. And so we draw the lines using that software, and then use something called Progen, product generation, to integrate it into the text and form the outlooks that then get transmitted that we all see. Evan, anything you want to add?
I don't think so.
I tend to give a quick summary of software and hardware and focus more on the human part of it. But yeah.
if you're a college student, what software, Evan or Bill, would help you to work at SPC?
It's less a function of the software. We can train for that skill, and we have a really well-developed training program. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for new forecasters. Really focus more on your scientific knowledge. Get a mentor that can help you develop your skills. Get to know some of our forecasters who might have similar interests, and get involved in projects where we can find out more about you and your interest. That's the way to get to SPC. It's not really software dependent.
Okay, did you? I'm not sure you answered the second part of hers. Is it true you're going to make the extended go out to 10 days?
Well, where we're at now and everything we do is just a moment in time. When we first started issuing outlooks, as cells was known prior to SPC, it was just for the current day. And so as the science improves and modeling capabilities advance, we've gotten farther and farther out into the future with our outlooks. I don't think we're going to stop at 8 days. When we make the transition and go farther out will depend on a number of factors, but we're not stopping where we're at now. I think soon you'll see a individual hazard probabilities for day 3, and the same with fire weather too. If I could just, we're not staying at the point that we're at now. It's just a matter of managing the change, doing it with skill, doing it with verifiable accuracy, but we're not standing still.
And another kudo for you, Bill, is I forgot about that. The double day 3, I bugged him for 10 years, and it's a reality. Bill kept his word. Then I could retire. It was the last straw, Bill.
It's not just Bill. We have a great staff here.
I know that. Okay, from Stanley in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Love that name, Jose. What is the most challenging area of the entire country to forecast severe storms?
Any forecast is challenging when your name is on it. Severe weather forecasting is rare event forecasting at its finest. Yeah, I'm joking, but I'm serious. When you look at the factors that influence a severe weather forecast, now days out, you focus on the large scale factors, but as you get closer to day 1, there are times where uncertainty actually increases because the things that you couldn't really consider in great detail 3, 4, 5 days out now are absolutely critical. Where is the differential heating setting up? Where is moisture? What is the value of the moisture? What are the effects of early morning storms? All of these factors become critical. And so severe weather forecasting is a challenge across the CONUS, I'll be honest. Because of the small scale nature, the sensitivity to ongoing and past severe weather, it's really challenging. And it's why forecaster expertise and judgment is such a critical part of the equation.
Got it. Evan, what's your hardest part, or you want to stick with Bill's?
Any given day, it could be somewhere else. People want a regional answer for that, but it's any given day, it could be somewhere else. It's challenging the high risk day because you know what's at stake for what the impact that it could have to people's lives on that day. It's challenging on the marginal day because of the complexities of, whether or not you'll get storms, or if a storm's just in the right spot, could it be worse than anticipated? That can be challenging as well. And then also there's the challenges of when you've got a severe weather forecast in the West where it happens relatively infrequently. There's less experience working with those type of events too. And so, realizing that 200 joules a cape might actually be significant in some of these areas versus other parts of the country. And so it's a challenge every single day. And really it's the long tenured experience that we all have cumulatively built over years that really, helps to build that confidence. But the longer you do it, the more scenarios you've seen, and in some ways, the less confident you get with any given forecast, because you know just how wide the distribution of outcomes could possibly be.
Got it. I loved your comment, Bill, about putting your name on it. Everyone's complicated. All right, this text just came in. Says, you mentioned collaboration an hour ago. Does SPC have a specific and known collaboration window with the WFOs, and how much weight is given to the input from the field?
We do have a window, but we'll take collaboration calls whenever we get them, because we realize that, we're busy, but so are the WFOs. They have a lot of time demands, and so when we get a chat or when we get a call, we'll have that conversation. Now, I will say that if the forecaster hasn't gotten to that particular part of the forecast yet, we may say, "Hey, we'll call you back or chat you back as we take a deeper look at things." But yeah, there is a window, and it's usually in the 1 to 2 hour prior to issuance. But again, when an office wants to reach out, if we can respond in a timely manner, we'll do it whenever we need to.
Okay.
And we do listen, and I can think of examples where the forecast was better because of collaboration with a local office, and so we certainly encourage it.
Yeah, your guys have always been really good as far as I'm concerned. Okay, Avery in St. George, Utah. This is a strange one, Bill. Get ready. How does SPC forecast haboobs, severe haboobs? And how do they mention, and do they ever mention boobs in their convective outlooks, their mesoscale discussions? And will they issue a severe thunderstorm watch for a large-scale haboob?
We may not mention it by name, but we will talk about, cold pool aggregation and convective system propagation. Yeah, that typically is associated with a more concentrated swath of damaging winds. And when we can do it skillfully, we're gonna do it. And when a watch is needed, especially after collaboration with the affected local offices, we'll certainly be ready to issue it.
Okay. Patrick from Mississippi State. Do you use any of the old Miller forecasting techniques? And do you use any older rules of thumb? Probably John Hart still uses pattern recognition.
I think pattern recognition plays a role even in today's world of, a number of high resolution model solutions that are available. As far as the Miller, by the way, one of the first things I got as a 15-year-old when I wrote to what was then National Climatic Data Center was Miller's Air Force TR-200, and I still have it. Parts of the pattern recognition are in use, but some of it has probably been supplanted by, later awareness and new knowledge. But yeah, those tried and true techniques still have their place.
Got it. We have a weather update. Troy, where's the new tornado warning?
It has popped up. It's actually not a new tornado warning. It's one continued by the Weather Office, WFO at Jackson, around Columbus, Mississippi right now, to the east of Mississippi State there a little bit, right on the Mississippi-Alabama line, just west of that. And radar is suggesting hail up to 3 inches in diameter. So that's pretty large hail for that neck of the woods.
Good. Okay. John in Little Rock asks, rare tornadoes in Michigan 2026, Minnesota December 2021. What does the future hold for severe weather forecasting and especially rare tornadoes?
Like climatologically rare events are challenging in any hazard that that may exist. We look for the ingredients-based approach, and typically we know there is a seasonal component to it, right? The amount of instability that will get a severe weather event. I see an update there. I'm not sure if I need to stop and let somebody break in, but I'll keep talking until somebody tells me to stop. So there is a seasonal component to these rare events, and our forecasters are skilled at trying to identify them. The local input from the WFO through the collaborative process helps, and collectively we just try to be on top of all of these events as best we can.
Got it. Let's see. We got Jay from Albany, New York, Bill. I mean, we got them everywhere here, man. They wanted to talk to you too. How is SPC, in fact, 3 people wrote about this. How is SPC using AI and machine learning strategies now for probabilistic forecasting, and how will you expand this in the future for severe and dire weather forecasting?
We have multiple tools internally that are using machine learning and AI techniques. So Some of those are available on the Href webpage, but we actually have multiple additional tools internally that we're using and experimenting with. And we've kind of been on the leading edge of that. The NATOcast guidance that was being posted out there on X a couple years ago, we actually had the opportunity to bring him into SPC and have him help develop that guidance for us internally. And so it's taking experts even outside of the scientific community who are more experts within that computer science world and helping them to improve our severe weather forecasts. And so we've been on the leading edge of that. And now then internally, we've got a lot of people who are working on the science support side who are utilizing AI and machine learning consistently. And that even works forward into a couple of the forecasters on staff now are running their own AI models to really help improve our long range forecasting, et cetera. And so we're really trying to take all of those tools at the leading edge and really help do whatever we can to help improve the forecast, because there is a lot of utility in those. And especially having them run by meteorologists who know the right type of things to look for, the right ways to train this in a way that is actually helpful for us as we're the ones putting the forecast together.
Okay, we have a radar update. James, and a question.
All right, the radar update. Still, things are well behaved. Our little transient circulations continue, but they're just not consistent. So that's a good sign. That's a pretty good sized QLCS blasting through Birmingham right now. So I bet they've got a lot of tree damage too going on. My question for both of you, you have incredible experience. The advancements that you've seen, especially in the last 10 years, if you put that forward, what is the state of your endeavor in 5 years and in 10 years? And along those lines, will there be a messaging emphasis, I guess, with the whole agency in that space between watch and warning?
One of our areas of emphasis is to that continuum between the watch and the warning is to provide as much actionable information as we can, essentially in a pre-warning type state. So we do have an internal focus on, we refer to them as meso-beta scale MDs, and that is once the watch is out, can we identify corridors that may be at greater risk? And then can we get that information out reliably, accurately, to precede the warnings, perhaps by an hour or two. So that will continue to be a focus. I think numerical models will continue to improve. AI tools that Evan briefly mentioned will continue to grow. I will say one thing, just a quick story. When I was 14 years old, I visited the weather office in my hometown, Norfolk, Virginia. That is how you pronounce it if you're from there. And the meteorologist in charge said I was wasting my time studying meteorology, that before I could graduate college, machines would be forecasting the weather. And that was, some years ago, let's just say. And so the notion that perhaps the role of the human is coming to an end, I don't believe it at all. Technology, the AI tools, the ML approaches will continue to grow, but you'll still need trained experts. Those tools are only as good as the training data set. So anyone watching who's considering a career in meteorology, the future is bright. It'll be different than the future I experienced, but there will be a need for humans in meteorology. Thanks for letting me say that. So.
Can I ask the James Spann question, since he's obviously busy? What do you tell somebody that's a freshman in meteorology that wants your job or Evan's job or Patrick Marsh's job?
I benefited greatly from a mentor. Ken Crawford was his name. He was a professor at OU. He was the meteorologist in charge of the Oklahoma City and then Norman forecast office when I was coming up through the end of my college career. I don't know where I would be without his guidance and his mentorship. At times he was honest, and I look back on it and realize it made me better, not just as a meteorologist, but as a person. And so if you're really interested, no matter what your focus is in meteorology, find a mentor who can help you. It makes a big difference.
Troy?
Yeah, I apologize, Bill and Evan, that I'm late today. It's been one of those days in Austin, non-weather related. So a little late getting here, but I got to tell everyone that, Evan, I know Rich and everyone else in the office was very much involved in this, but I had the chance to sit in on one of your sessions and really enjoyed it a whole lot. My concern all along has been, and I think I even stated it maybe 2 weeks ago and on this program, is that we've had rain probabilities, we have hurricane probabilities and things like this, and neither one of those are really, if you go out and talk to the public, they don't get that even now. And so I'm a little worried about that, but after sitting down and listening to Evan for that presentation, I feel better about it now. And Bill, the outreach, Bill, good to see you as always. The outreach has just been tremendous. You have a hell of a team there, and they deserve to be very proud because this is a major step. And thank you, Evan. Thank you, Rich. Tell Rich hello for me, and Bill. Thank everyone on staff. Really good job on the outreach.
I appreciate that coming from you, Troy. That's a great compliment. And you're right. We do have a great staff, and great things are in store in our future. We're not stopping where we're at.
It's funny you mentioned that because this just came in from Pierce. You've got the SIG changes this year. What are upcoming changes that would wow me in 2027, 2028, and 2029? What's next?
Run, Evan, run.
So I will say that there's Troy, first of all, thank you for the kind words on that. And that kind of leads into what I'm going to say next is we're trying to bridge this gap between giving additional information that can be utilized by the broadcast media, by the emergency management community to really help get the message and craft the message correctly. But also, we've got this very science-driven mission. And what we are trying to build behind the scenes that we've now laid the groundwork for with this conditional intensity stuff is really the cool part. And that's what we're going to see the fruits of moving into the future. I mean, we now have the ability to model specific tornado intensities and tornado numbers across the country using a Monte Carlo simulation and that we've been running internally and actually works very well. And that type of information for our partners at FEMA and the emergency management community is extremely valuable. And so this is the first step in really some high level what we call quantitative IDSS or decision support as we look into the future. And so it's really exciting for us. This was just the ground floor really for the next level products that we're going to be able to generate here in support of our partners.
Great. So my friend up in Canada just sent this, Bill, said, do you ever coordinate with the Canadian Storm Prediction Center?
We actually have an exchange program where every year, and it varies depending on the year, but many years, at least in the 14 I've been here, we've had 4 Canadian meteorologists from each of their storm prediction centers come down and spend a week. And part of that week is at SPC, part of it is with the WFO, part of it is with the hazardous weather test bed. So we really give them a very thorough indoctrination to life in Norman in the spring. And the feedback we get is off the charts. Very positive, and I know that there's a lot of interest in coming down. Unfortunately, they typically can't send as many as are interested, but it's a great exchange program. And I'll just say that we learn as much from them as they learn from us. So,
but if you're putting a watch up against Bismarck and Grand Forks, do you talk to them at all, or that's it? You're getting a watch up against the neighbor.
Not operationally. No, it'd be really infrequent that we would talk with them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So those are the questions from the group, but we have a special email segment and a question for you, Bill Bunting. So Jen?
Yeah, this came in from our friend Jay Farlow. So I'm going to go through the whole, most of the email here. What would happen if the National Weather Service began issuing severe thunderstorm warnings only for storms that meet the same destructive criteria that currently warrant a wireless emergency alert? I understand that the National Weather Service considers a thunderstorm to be destructive to put on WEA if it's 80 mile per hour winds, hail of at least 2.75 inches. And then he rephrased it here a little bit. Do we really need warnings for storms that might produce 58 mile per hour wind gusts or 1 inch hail? How much would serious injuries increase if such storms no longer received warnings? And how often do warned storms that barely exceed the warning threshold cause serious injuries now? By deciding that only destructive storms warrant WEA dissemination, it seems to me that in a way, National Weather Service has already decided that warnings for weaker storms are far less important or valuable, perhaps not important or valuable enough to even exist. So he is wondering, I wanted to get our thoughts. We want to get your thoughts on this bill. Perhaps eliminating warnings for storms that don't meet the destructive criteria might eventually lead people to take more action anytime a severe thunderstorm warning is issued.
A lot to consider there. In my career, I've spent a lot of time doing outreach, and one of the sort of the dominant themes in interacting with folks, mostly in severe weather prone parts of the country, I've spent most of it here in the central US, is that people want information. They want to be able to decide what to do with that information, but they want the information. So my initial thought would be it would be difficult to not issue warnings for the levels that we do now, but I do think the impact-based warnings do help folks to determine the severity. Obviously, the severity is explicitly conveyed, and so it enables those who might not be as interested in the lower, the marginal severe storms to treat that accordingly. Whereas folks who might be let's say they're in a vulnerable position, vulnerable location, and any threat for 60 plus mile an hour winds or 1-inch hail would be concern to them to take action. So it's complex, and I'm not quite ready to say that those other warnings are less important, because they are to some people, and so we just have to be mindful of that.
James A., did you want to say something?
Yeah, it's the highest death toll in a severe thunderstorm warning was in a baseline severe thunderstorm, and that was the Branson duck boat. So it matters, and it matters a lot.
Yeah.
I'll say every year we see days on a report map with 700, 800 blue dots, and none of them are black squares. So every single one of those are what would be under the baseline criteria. And each one of those dots represents an impact to somebody's life. A tree down, or damage to somebody's roof, or damage to someone's property. That's at minimum 800 people who had a really bad day, and probably much more than that on those type of days. And so I think those type of days really highlight the fact that ignoring those situations is certainly not the best answer. Although debate could be done on what is the better answer looking into the future. And those are the type of things that we really get a lot of help from our friends in the social science world to kind of figure out, how can we best message these as we look into the future.
Yep, absolutely. Jen, did you have any more email or want to promote the next few shows?
Let's do some promotion, shall we? Let me pull that up here. Hopefully. We got some great shows coming up, John. Let me see if I could share this and keep pushing buttons here. There we go.
It worked. You did great.
Thank you so much. So get to it. Who do you got coming up here? It looks like some heavy hitters.
So this week is all SPC and convection. Next week, we're going to learn all about, and I know James Aildad will have a lot of puns, and Bill will have some puns, but it's all on marine weather, all about coastal weather. How do you forecast waves? What's the difference between a small craft advisory and a gale warning? Go ahead, James A. You got a joke already? Go ahead. Okay, all right. Chris Lancy, that Kim's family thinks funny because in French, what does this mean, Kim?
No, it's Brian, right?
Yeah, it was Lamar. So between the two of them, they were like, "Are these real names?" So yeah, I mean Lancy, obviously with marine weather, that's just funny. We all know and love Chris, but that's just funny. And Lamar in French is a person who lives by a body of water. So it's basically the same, like seriously. And these are the people who do marine weather. So like my where I'm from back in Indiana, there was a dentist named Dr. like Toothacher. Come on now, come on. And yeah, so this is a similar
show title. Dr. Toothacher. Okay, so March 23rd, we got the NHC director, Dr. Michael Brennan. And I know this is some folks, Oklahoma's hero, a guy that changed severe weather, storming, everything. Howie Bluestein has never been on the show, so that'll be a big show.
Yeah.
I think. So
awesome.
Where's that email, Jen? Where do they go?
Email at weatherbrains.com.
Okay, we're going to go on to Picks of the Week, where everyone has an opportunity to bring up their favorite things of the week. And then we'll give you guys, Evan and Bill, you can pick a pick and then promote some of your stuff that you're doing, okay? So we'll start with the man that does the 9 o'clock news, James Aildad.
Yes, and guess what? We have baseball, I think, or something. So this could have gone on for another hour, and you'd have been tormented by me even longer in chat. Um, my pick of the week is from the MRMS suite, the multi-radar, multi-sensor data display tool that NSSL runs, of the rotation tracks from the two supercells Friday evening in Northeast Oklahoma. And we're they were 25, 30 miles apart and just split on either side of Tulsa. Threaded the needle.
How close from downtown were each way? How close?
North, maybe about 4 miles. North and west, 4 miles. South, about 20 miles.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Way too close. Okay, Commissioner. What is your pick of the week, Commissioner? I've been wanting to say that since I started. That line right there.
Oh my word. Well, I have to say this is my failing for getting in my picks of the week late. You actually, John Gordon, picked what was on my list to be the pick of the week. So I'm going to save that for you. And I'll pick another pick. My pick of the week is actually a notice from Edwardsburg, Michigan Public Schools. And I think that there was a tornado that hit Edwardsburg. It ended up being, I think it's rated EF1, but it's a lower end tornado. But their notice out to the community, because one of their schools was hit, it talks about, this destructive tornado, and like the language that's used is like, this is a big disaster has happened. And I just want to share it as a reminder to us all that intensity, we've been talking about this in relative terms today, but tornadoes of all kinds can be destructive and really impactful to the people who are affected by them. And just to situate ourselves back in that space.
Well stated. Even in nowhere, Kansas, Kim. Well stated. Okay. The Nomad, whose internet worked through the show. What's your pick of the week?
So my pick of the week is exciting. It is the Southeast Severe Storm Symposium, the 24th annual one, Mississippi State. You need to register by March the 12th, by the end of the day, because they are not doing late registration. So you need to get in there, and I'm going to sweeten the deal for you. First of all, it's my first time ever going to this symposium. I've wanted to go for years. And I just found out today that they approved my abstract, and I will be speaking at the symposium on Sunday. And the title is The Virtual Tornado Memorial, Preserving the Human History Behind the Data. And as soon as I saw it, I got excited. And I also thought I was going to throw up because I'm like, oh man, it's for real now. So I'm very excited to do this. I wanted just to read the last paragraph of my abstract. This presentation will explore how integrating research, storytelling, and enterprise collaboration can deepen public trust, preserve institutional memory, and honor the more than 22,000 lives lost to tornadoes in the United States. And that does include the 8 that we just lost. And I do not want this project to get any bigger. And so it is my hope and prayer that we can continue to build this, to remember, and what we learned from the past will help us prepare for the future.
So I spoke at the first 2 of those, the Southeast Severe Storms. What's the date again?
It is the 28th and 29th. And you got to get your registration in by 11:59 p.m. Central on March the 12th.
Ironically, which is really unfortunate, I'm also speaking that same weekend along with James Spann at the CCAP, Southeastern Coastal Atmospheric Processes Symposium. Trying to figure that one out. It's the same bloody weekend, so we need to work on scheduling, folks. So anyway, I'm glad you're going, and you're going to do great there, Jen. Troy, what's your pick of the week?
I had the foghorn tonight. I'm going to bow out, and but really recommend that everyone, of course, and I'll let Evan and Bill sort of handle this. But check out if you have not done it yet, go over to the SBC website. Even though that's not going to be a pick, because I know Evan and Bill probably want to do that.
Okay, James Ayolet, do you have a foghorn noise for us? Do you have something amusing? Okay.
No, that's pretty good. Who did that?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a radar update, James, real quick? How we doing?
Oh, let me look.
There's a little bit, just Bill, James taking it away from you. There's a little bit of a little rotation there southeast of Macedonia, Alabama. It's kind of west of Reform, Alabama, but Birmingham still has a severe thunderstorm warning out on that. But there is a little notch in there.
Yeah, I can little couplet. It's elevated from Birmingham's view,
Yep.
but we'll see if we can get down. That thing was throwing out some hail earlier. Is that the
4
cell you were
inch.
talking about?
Yeah, four. I was seeing 4.5 inch suggested by the Columbus Air Force Base radar.
Okay.
Woof.
Okay. So my pick of the week, and we'll go to Rick here. My pick of the week is some legislation from a former guest, representative, meteorologist. All right. I can say this now since I'm retired. I'm a fan of this bill to have a weather safety review board.
Amen.
We need weather service. I'm talking to you. We need accountability in where it's public. We look at an event. We're honest. Have folks like Kim, Commissioner Kim, who's a straight shooter, look at an event, go through it, and be open and honest. It's when you grade your own calculus test, you get good grades. Imagine that. So I want this bill to pass on both parties. Pass this bill.
Well, the only thing that makes me worry about that is the crap, excuse the expression that I used from Austin, Texas, that happened in the NTSB in the last day or so. That bugs me, but it's supposed to be, supposed to be pretty, pretty sacred. The people that serve, I have such respect for the NTSB and the work they do, and to hear what's happened with that is a travesty. But I agree. You need to get external partners involved in this as well, and I think that's the way to do it. I agree completely with you, John.
National Weather Safety. What's the title? So I don't get this wrong, Kim. The National Weather Safety.
Yeah,
Review.
the National Weather Safety Board.
Yeah.
I think.
Thank you.
What they were
All right,
looking
thank
at.
you. Thank you. Rick, what's your pick of the week?
I've probably picked this one at least once a year for the past several years, but it's a good one. The National Weather Service Damage Assessment Toolkit Viewer, where you can go in and see the actual damage survey data from National Weather Service teams around the area. We use an app when we're out in the field to put data into that. And after it's QC'd and made public, then you can go in and look at individual damage points, whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, see pictures, comments from the survey team. So yeah, that's a good one, and it's a lot to look at this time of year for sure.
Excellent pick of the week. Yeah. So Bill and Evan, this is your chance. What do you want to promote on SPC, your own pages, things that you think are cool? What do you got? Evan, what do you want to talk about?
So I'm actually going to share my screen here. I've got some eye candy, if you will, for something coming up here in the future for us. So this actually goes back. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So this goes back to at a conference a couple of years ago. I was actually talking with James Spann about this very thing, and I told him I was working on a web page to be able to display historical watch information. So you can search, when's the last time there was a PDS watch in Cleveland County, or when is the last time, or what's the average number of PDS tornado watches that occur in a year. You can even look in here and look at what the anomaly map looks like based on the ENSO cycle for the top parts involved with ENSO. So there's a bunch of information in here, and I can promote it now because it is not available externally on the SPC webpage yet, but within the next couple of months, it will be. We're going through the final steps of IT to make sure that we can support it continuing into the future and make sure everything's up to date. But internally, it is working well. And so we are close to having this live. And I know, James, you were really excited about it when we talked about it then. So it will be out soon. This is kind of a first pitch for that by later this spring.
That's a great pick of the week and great work. Thanks for always pushing the limit, Evan, not settling for the donuts. Keep making better things over and over and over. Well done. Bill, what's your pick of the week or things that you want to promote?
I think my pick, and I mentioned this earlier, was the hazard climatology page that's on the SPC website. If you click on forecast tools, you'll see it as one of the options. The reason I like it is because it helps put our outlooks in context, no matter where you live, or if let's say you're traveling to a place that you're not familiar with. Knowing the severe weather climatology is really important when it comes to interpreting the outlook. So The SPC, hazard climatology, that'd be my pick.
Awesome. And I'm a big fan of SPC. We all are, right? All of us on the show. We're huge fans. Thanks for both coming on tonight. It was a good show. And Bill, you're the best, man. So
Thanks for inviting us. We really enjoyed it.
So if you're new to WeatherBrains, I'm filling in for James. I don't have the script. So if you're new to WeatherBrains, we're on Monday nights between 7 and 9 Central or 8 and 10 Eastern, et cetera, et cetera. And we want to hear from you. Show ideas, new episodes, any email. Jen, you want to promote us one last time?
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to hear everything international stuff for John Gordon. He still wants to get those emails, but we are promoting our shows now because we want you to bring in your questions for the guests that are coming up. So for our Marine show, for the Hurricane Center Director, for Howie as well, get us your questions in, email at weatherbrains.com.
Thank you. On behalf of me, James Spann, our fearless leader who's dealing with severe thunderstorm warnings, maybe some tornado warnings. On behalf of everyone, I'm John and the gang. So thanks for watching episode 1050, and we'll see you next week. So thank you. Anything else I'm supposed to say?
Outstanding, you all.
Yeah, that was great. It was a great
Outstanding.
Evan, Bill, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Thanks,
coming
guys.
on. I know you're both tired. Bill, long day. Evan, thank you both.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Keep up the
thank you
great
for
work. Give Patrick a hard time for me.
Every day.
Take care, guys. See you next
See
week.
ya.